betrayal, strife, pain, rage, anguish, light, willpower, courage. This is Darklaw, and welcome to Decree of Dominion. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Decree of Dominion podcast. I know you all missed me. This is episode 15 of the Darklaw Dominion Mental Health Series. And boy, do we have a special guest for you all this evening. We have Miss Shondale Atkinson out of the THE Dayton, Ohio, to tell us about her Beyond the System growing up in foster care outreach program, and to tell her personal journey growing up in foster care. And so, Shondale, how are you this evening?
I am doing great, Dominion. I appreciate you having me on the show this evening. I look forward to talking with you and your guest tonight.
Awesome. And again, can you tell the audience, for those that don't know, a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Alrighty, so my name is Shondale Atkinson. I am located here in Dayton, Ohio. I was born and raised here in the foster care system. I went into the foster care right before my second birthday and emancipated out right before I turned 19. I started a teen moms program here called the Mustard Seed Foundation based off of my experiences of growing up in foster care and being a teenage mom in foster care. So when I started the Mustard Seed Foundation in 2007, it was a program that was birthed out of pain that God turned into purpose. So here I am 16 years later.
Awesome. And again, like I start every episode with, you heard what she said, y'all. She's had the Mustard Seed Foundation, a foundation for teen moms since 2007. And so she's coming up strong on, getting closer and closer to 20 years in that industry. So she has a wealth of knowledge and personal experience in that field. And also she has, again, the Beyond the System, a documentary that's coming out. I won't spoil it, but it's coming out spring 2025. I'll let her talk more about that. But as I tell everybody listening and viewing here today, everything that's said may not resonate with you. Maybe you have nobody in your family that went through foster care. Maybe you've never met somebody in foster care, or maybe you have the same story or similar experiences. But I just hope that everyone listening and viewing here today just takes one thing that is said and you can use to resonate with it and apply it daily to your life, to decree the dominion of your own mind and reveal the true light that shines. And so with that being said, I'll let you take it away. Can you tell us about, your childhood and how you grew up?
As I stated a little bit ago, Dominion, I was born in 77. And during that time that I was born, my mother already had three children already. And my mother had been battling with drug addiction. Of course, when the 80s hit, things got really, really bad because crack hit our community. And my mother was a victim of that, of the crack era, who all five of her kids, well, at the time, with it being four of us, I ended up having a little sister also, but all five of us went into foster care and were separated in and out of foster care. We would have these moments where we would transition back into the home of our mother, but it was all bad. It was a lot of violence, a lot of, sexual abuse, a lot of physical abuse in my mother's home and in foster homes. So, it was a lot of trauma growing up. We For me, I was in 21 different foster homes. So there was a constant rotating door. There was never a feeling of being safe or secure in any situation. So my goal with starting my organization was to make sure that young people didn't have to feel that way, or that we can try to start reversing the effects of trauma earlier than watching people get into their 30s and 40s and 50s and just now start trying to work on their healing. So yeah, my childhood was pretty brutal. Yeah.
Wow, wow. I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of people, they have the little movies about foster care, or
Mhm.
there used to be a show called The Fosters. I think it's discontinued now, but I remember going through high school, my high school years, watching that show and kind of seeing, we see the reality TV version of it, that, you see some scenes that, gets, kind of like, gruesome or out there, but you really don't know what really goes on,
Mhm.
inside those homes. And I just remember growing up, just growing up, I've always been the one to, see the goodness in people, or try to see the goodness in people regardless. And I always thought that, if you are a foster parent, that you just love children and you just wanted to, create a safe space for all children, not just the children that you're fostering. And um, you
Yeah.
know, come to realize, when you go throughout life, especially, being in my late 20s now,
Mhm.
as you meet different people throughout life, you kind of understand and really learn that that's not always the case. And so, let's start with kind of like your early years, because I know you said you started, at the early age of 2.
Yeah.
And so, let's kind of start with, that age 2 to 10. What was your mindset, as a little girl, in foster care, and some of the experiences that you went through?
Yeah. So I went into foster care. A report was made about me when I was, like I said, about to turn 2. Um, a neighbor had called the police and told the police officer, what told, had told the police officers that her son, who was a young teenager at the time, had sex with a little girl named Nikki who stayed in the building with them. And apparently what the young man shared with his mother is that the brother of Nikki, my oldest brother, was selling this little girl named Nikki, which was me. And when the police came out to do their investigation, they ended up removing all of us from the home. So apparently, this was something that one of my uncles had going on, where he was pretty much sex trafficking out his nieces and the young kids around him, and my brother pretty much had fell prey in with that situation and started doing it too. And so that is the first situation that took me into foster care. And then from there again we would transition back with my mother when she would get clean. So I remember being 4 years old living with my mother and watching my mother be jumped on and blood and it's everywhere. There's a lot of there was a lot of fighting that day going on. I remember the police and ambulance and them showing up, and I mean I'm 4, but I have a lot of memories of things that I wish I could forget. And so that's one of the situations that I remember my mother being jumped on that day, the police coming. And again, we're back at this strange building and we're all separated again. So those are pretty much a lot of my memories of, living with my mother. It was consistently that way. We were either in the dark, living without no water, living without food, living in in an environment that was crack infested, and all type of traffic coming in and out of the house all the time, strange men touching on you. So there was just a lot of stuff going on in my mother's home. But there was also a lot of things that were not right that was going on in the foster homes that I was in. I can remember telling my caseworker at 8 years old that I was being molested by my foster father, and her telling me that I wasn't telling the truth, that I had made it up, that I was lying about it. And so she took me out of that home and put me in one of the worst houses ever. And so I learned very early on to keep my mouth shut, that I did not have an advocate that I could trust, and that, to them I was invaluable. I just didn't have any value. So I learned how to just, take it. And that's a lot of what I dealt with up until, I was old enough to pretty much start, trying to manage my own life.
Wow, so much to unpack there. Again, just from the beginning, you talked about your uncle and the brother, kind of in that P Diddy type situation, with the trafficking. And I just want to pause right there and just let everybody know that's listening and viewing. Again, you know, it could happen to anybody. It's not just the celebrities or people with money or people, with big families or what have you. As humans, we all can come up with different excuses on, oh, that won't happen to me. I don't have enough money, or, my family, we're a close, we play spades on the weekends, every weekend. We go to church on Sundays. That'll never happen to me, but it could happen to you, or it could happen to somebody very close to you. And so as a community, we have to be aware and care for each other. And that's a big thing that you said there, because again, you said it's your uncle's scheme, but the older brother had fell victim to it. And I just want to say that your kids can fall prey to everything that you do. um the Bible says, leave an inheritance for my children's children. And a lot of people, we leave generational curses for our children's children. And
Hmm.
so um, the dirt that you're doing, or the demons that you're fighting, can directly affect, your children.
Yeah.
And so I just want to slow down and let the viewers know that. And then, again, you said, with you were 4 years old, witnessing your mother get beat on, and just those different. I actually, have spoken on this as well, but I was around the same age, 4 or 5 years old, when I witnessed, the first time, you know, my father, you know, uh, committing domestic violence, against my mother. And so, just as I vividly remember, every moment of that situation. And, I want to encourage the viewers that, maybe you're out there listening right now, and maybe you're a domestic violence survivor, or maybe have been through a similar situation. And I just want to let you know that your children remember everything. Again, Shondale's here right now, you know, as, a grown woman, but again, still remembers, the details. We always remember, how we felt. We remember the emotion. We remember the pain, the tears,
Hmm.
the anger, the rage. Your children will remember, you know. And so I just want, all the viewers to understand that as well. And so, how is your mother today? Or, has that relationship ever gotten better as you kind of grew up into your teenage years?
It's interesting because I became so addicted to my mother's sobriety that it became very unhealthy for me. I found myself chasing after, it was almost like chasing after a ghost. My mother is 70 years old today, and she is still using crack cocaine. And it's something that I've seen her take many. She's had multiple strokes. She's been beat up multiple times. I've seen her stabbed in her back with a butcher knife at one point. I tell my mother all the time, we laugh, and I'm like, man, you the woman of nine lives. If I've ever seen anybody walking this earth that I understand God's, plan over their life is yours. But it also made me take a step back and say that, you know, um, her life is her journey. And whatever that looks like, that's between her and God, and that her sobriety can't be more important to me than it is to her. And everybody has choices. And I know today, by being in counseling, by going to therapy, by going to Al-Anon classes, by really doing childhood shadow work with myself, I know today that her addiction is not a representation of the love that she has for her children, or the absence of her, her being absent from my life a lot. It does not, that addiction doesn't outweigh the love that I know she has for us. So I'm able to love her from a place today that, no matter what you come with or how you come, you my mother, and I love you. And So I've kind of had to move myself from being this caregiver or this woman with this superhero cape. This is like the first year that I've literally been able to be like, okay, let me take off this superhero cape and let everybody else find their own wings.
I love the way you said that because all the times, we try to be, that old Alicia Keys song, even though I'm a mess, I still put on a vest with an S on my chest. Oh
Yeah.
yes. Um, and I love that you said that because you said something very important. And I hope as an audience that you really understood and listened to what she just said. She said, um, it felt like chasing a ghost.
Mhm.
And not just with parents and addiction or domestic violence or healing, but a lot of times in life, we chase after other people just like
Mm.
ghosts.
Mm.
It's like the cat and mouse game. Whether it's in a relationship trying to get somebody to love you, and that's not just romantically. That could be, again, parents. It could be siblings. It could be children. It could be, not just significant others. A lot of times or we know in our heart we love someone so much, whether it's your, who it is. It could be just a best friend or um a sibling, brother, sister, mom, dad, but we want to see them in a perfect light, and we sacrifice our own light to try to shine it on others. But like she just said, that's between her and God. And a lot of times, what I'm saying to the viewers is we have to stop playing God on earth.
Yeah.
We have to stop trying to play God on earth because, that burden was God's to lift. It wasn't your burden to carry. And
Mm.
so I love what you said about her addiction doesn't outweigh the love that she has for her children. Because a lot of times we can be remorseful and we can be angry with ourselves on, why isn't this working, and it's not just with, your situation, it's everything.
Yeah.
Why does my dad stop? Why can't he stop drinking? Why can't he stop beating on my mom? Or,
Yeah.
why won't my spouse love me? Or why won't my girlfriend, you know, why didn't she, cook dinner before I get home? And, why don't she do this? It's not our burden to carry. And so we just have to, you know, let people live. I would say
Yeah.
let people live and focus on, sometimes you have to focus on your own life, rather than, yeah, and then just let that other person, um, uh, parents, old school sayings always said, love and pray for from a distance. You have to distance yourself, not necessarily always from the person, but you have to distance yourself from their problems that
Yes.
God's trying to work on.
Mm.
And so
Yes.
I just encourage everyone listening that, you know, show people grace. One thing she just said with her mother's love is she showed her mom grace.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we get so angry at the person that it's like, why are you still smoking crack after all these years? Or why weren't you there for me? Or, why wouldn't you stop for me? And again, that's for that person and God to situate and work through. Everything isn't your burden to try to fix.
Yeah.
Again, like she said, she had to take off the cape, y'all, and, become Clark Kent. She had to put on the glasses and, go back to the desk and work on herself. And so I'm glad that you said that. And again, it's great that, you're able to come away and still, grow yourself because again, if you would have kept chasing that ghost, you might not have the, outreach programs and the success you have today as a grown woman. Because a lot of times, you only have so much energy in life.
Yeah.
And if you spend the whole energy again chasing that ghost, and you look back and now you're chasing yourself.
Yeah.
And so you want to again be a cognizant of that and, you know, focus on what you have going on because I want the audience to think of what she said at the beginning during her intro. She's been having the Mustard Seed Foundation since 2007. Um, Y'all, that's almost 20 years.
Mm,
That's almost 20 years. And so I just want the audience to really quickly just think about if she would have kept chasing that ghost, all the young women that she's impacted over the past, 17 years, 15 plus years, you know, that's how many people that would have fell short of reaching their potential because she was stuck in her way and chasing that ghost. And so
mm,
there's people out there that are going to listen and that may be listening right now or maybe viewing right now. And you're trying to find, a lot of us are trying to find ourselves or find our calling or figure out what we're supposed to do in life. And the question you have to ask yourself is, are you still chasing that ghost?
mm,
And so, with that being said, to kind of go back to what you said about the foster system,
mhm,
um, I hope y'all heard that, y'all. She said, the foster father, she told the caseworker, about her being molested, and she was told to shut up. She was told to be quiet. And so, there's many of you out there that are victims of sexual abuse. And we call it the voiceless voice. You're
mm,
told to, be voiceless and to, shut up and, your feelings don't matter. It didn't happen. You're taught that you're crazy, you're schizophrenic. It's an illusion in your head. And in the reality, that's what narcissists do to make you think you're
mm,
crazy so that you, kind of numb it. Everything is, they want you to medicate and forget that it ever happened. And so I'll let you walk through more of that
mm,
situation and how you grew up and how you were able to combat that with those emotions, because I think that's a hidden thing
mm,
um, inside the foster care system that we don't look at. That we, again, like I said earlier, we think that, from my perspective, I'm like, oh, they're foster parents. They want to help every children, or they want to just love you and buy you, have Christmas breakfast and open presents and have Thanksgiving dinner and do all the things that, the normal families do.
mhm.
But again, that's not always the case. And so I'll let you have the floor and kind of walk through that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's one of the reasons why, you know, doing this documentary for me, it was so important because I just wanted to be able to get to the table of having conversations. I wanted to bring myself out of that moment of where I kept feeling powerless in those dark rooms and in those basements and in the closet. And, I had to be able to, essentially free myself from those rooms, free myself from those beds and free myself from that basement in the church. And so, in order to do that, I had to be able to be bold enough to have the conversations. And to me, I had to snatch back my power because I remember sitting there that day and my mother being upset about the allegations that I had made and her not having any power because her kids are in a system that she doesn't hold custody of her own children. So, even my mother trying to come to my aid of saying, hey, listen, I didn't put my kids in here for that. I mean, y'all supposed to be helping my kids and so on and so forth. And her being, silenced even. And so I think that even now looking at my mother and her addiction and the direction the journey for her, a lot of it is guilt. So a lot of times I'm telling my siblings and them, my mother was in foster care too, so it goes back to you talking about the generational curses that we leave for our children and our children's children. um, I look at my mother, and my mother went into foster care before she turned 2 because her mother passed away. So my mother went into foster care at a time when it was not foster homes, really, where it wasn't these loving 2-parent households, so on and so forth. They were institutional buildings. The building that she was raised in was called Shine Acres, and everybody in this area knows about Shine Acres. They know, when you hear that, you like, oh, that was those babies that was in there that was institutionalized. So I think about the lack of love and nurture that my mother had at a very young age. So I'm able to really see her from a different lens. And so even when my siblings ask me, like, how did you forgive mom when she's allowed us to go through this and she did this and that? And I'm like, y'all don't understand. Your mother was not parented. You know what I mean? She wasn't held and nurtured and loved, and she didn't have that at the age of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those fundamental years. So I really tip my hat to my mother, because even though she did not have that, my mother still taught me what love looked like. You know what I mean? She taught us what the love of God looks like. And I tell my siblings that, like, I can show my mother a lot of grace because my mother taught me what grace looked like at a young age. So although I can see a lot of the traumatic situations that we had dealing with my mother and living in those homes, I can see the glory of God in those situations too. And I could see why God has kept her for 70 years as he promised, because she never turned her heart from God. Even in her addictive state, I can remember hearing my mother pray. I can remember my mother reading her word. I can remember my mother taking us to a church. I can remember, her teaching us to honor God and how to share. So a lot of who I am today in the organizations that I've started and in the work that I do is because of her. You know what I mean? Nobody else, really instilled that in me but my mother. So, I tell people, it's different when people are like, oh, well, you were raised in foster homes, so that means that there was this great family that took you out of this environment and really loved you and cared for you. And I'm like, no, not necessarily. I probably, out of the 21 foster homes I was in, probably 3 of them was good.
Oh, say that again.
So out of the 21 foster homes that I was in, probably about 3 of those were good. I can remember that, being in 3 of those houses where I didn't feel like the fear. I mean, there was a real fear in me most nights in those houses that I was in. So, maybe 3 of those houses I can remember not feeling that way.
That's why, y'all, I want her to say that again because 3 out of 21 houses, y'all, that's less than 10%. That's less than 10% of the houses that she was in. And you got to understand, as a young foster child, between the ages of 2 and 18, 19 years old, you know, still in her youth, 3 out of 21 foster homes where she could actually lay down and feel safe and get a good night's rest. I hope that sticks with y'all because, again, like I said earlier, I just thought it was all, you know, white picket fence and you're gonna, go to some wealthy family and, get to get the first piece of turkey on Thanksgiving and have a big Christmas tree and, go to church on Easter Sunday and have all the candy and decorate eggs and help grandma in the kitchen make pies for the bake sale and you have a lemonade stand and all the things that, you know, we see as a normal family, back in the day, especially, growing up, was not afforded to her. And I love what you said about your mother because there's somebody on here right now that's listening that's going to hear this episode and maybe you have a family member, a parent that faced drug addiction and maybe you're in your 20s in your 30s in your 40s, sitting there at home right now listening like I'm angry, I'm resentful. But what she said, y'all, is despite all that her mother went through, she still showed her grace. She still showed her who God was. And what I want to shed light on that is because no matter what you went through in your childhood, there's always some light inside the darkness that you can glean to become a better person. Again, no matter what you went through, there's always something that you can take from that. It's not about what you went through in life. It's about the lessons you learned and applied, as you went through it. And so I just encourage anyone that maybe you're listening, you have a parent that is still going through addiction or maybe recovered addiction when you were, a child, when's the last time you spoke to your parent? When's do you have grace for that parent? When's the last time you sat down like we're doing right now on this episode? When's the last time you sat your mom or dad down and had that difficult conversation to get how much baggage are you still carrying? Have
Mm-hmm.
you ever even told your parents, how you felt about their addiction growing up or how it affected you? Those are the questions you have to ask yourself because, again, if you haven't, then you're still, stuck and going through that, as an adult. And again, like we were mentioning, those generational curses that you leave. Maybe you're about to have your first kid, or maybe you already have children. That negative impact is being passed down to them consciously, whether you know it or not, whether it's through your behavior, whether it's you slam the door, when they do something wrong, whether you get angry when they make a mistake, all those little factors stem from childhood abuse and healing that hasn't taken place. And so, um, I just encourage everybody that's listening and viewing to, if you are going through that situation or know someone that's gone through that, when's the last time you had to sit down and talk with that person? And again, to show that person grace, because there's lessons to be learned in every trial and tribulation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like what you said, Dominion, because one of the things I'll say is just like when I got ready to start, and I had done a few different projects that I was working on previously. Like I was looking at writing my book. I was about to put out a movie at one point, and every single time my mother or my siblings would show like a disappointment with that, or like my mother would always felt like it was targeting her, like the movie was about her, or like my book or whatever was about her, or my work in the community was speaking ill of her. And I'm like, mommy, me being able to stand on my truth don't negate that I know you love me. You know what I mean? And so, and it's not to condemn you, it's to really talk about it, how the system, it didn't just fail your kids, it failed you too. So my goal is to talk about it from a systemic standpoint, how many systems are broken when we're talking about kids in care. So we have educational systems that don't know how to educate kids that are transit. We have healthcare systems that don't know how to make sure that they're looking out for the signs of abuse, or really listening to kids when they're coming into these hospitals saying, I've been sexually molested by a foster parent. And your healthcare systems are supposed to be you know uh reporters of those type of situations, and they're not. Or you have caseworkers who are working in systems that don't understand that, like you said, I'm 46 now, but it's taken me a long time to recover and to heal from this trauma that was done to me. And unfortunately, this caseworker gets to get in her car, collects the paycheck, go home, and really her life gets to continue, even though there are multiple crimes that she should be convicted for. And anytime you are covering a client crime, that is complicit. You know what I mean? And so the fact that these people get to be able to go on with their lives and they've been complicit in so many situations is a crime, and that's called for national federal reform. We need that for the foster care system. That people need to start facing a punishment when they are complicit in these crimes, and they take a oath to protect. And when they don't do their jobs, that is a crime. And so I just think that we need to buckle down and really start calling for reform, and policy to be changed in regards to that.
Awesome. I love that you said that because, again, you know, you only know what you know, right? And
Mm,
so, if nobody's, if we always say, a safety culture at work in corporate America is see something, say something. And so those people, they do that because nobody's seeing something and saying something. Again,
yeah,
like you said earlier in your testimony, that voiceless voice, you're being told to shut up. And so, um, again, there's a difference. The main thing she's trying to get across, y'all, is there a difference between a job and just human, morals and values. At what point does it, does the 25, $30, however much an hour, or how much is a salary, um, dictate how you care for other humans, especially children? And so, that's the question we need to ask ourselves as a society, as a government, as a nation. You know, is this really the right system in its current state to provide, protect, and preserve our children? And Obviously, since it's not, who's going to step up, and what are the actionable steps to take to, again, reform that and become a society that, puts its children first, especially the foster children. And so, with that being said, you know, I know you said you had a, had a child within the foster care system.
Yes.
Take us through. I know people are probably asking as they listen, how'd you graduate school, or how does school work through the foster system? Can you walk through, how it was in school, and, then you can go into, how it was to raise a child in foster care and how that situations happen.
Yeah. So one of the things about school for me was I had this love hate relationship with school growing up. I love the fact that I could play basketball. So, I started playing basketball when I was about 7. And so, being in school, it gave me the opportunity to, pretty much be there from an athletics perspective. Like I knew I had to get good grades or whatever in order to play basketball. And then I played AAU. I was a pretty good basketball player, as a youth. So I started to really fall in with good coaches and being really busy in the summer because of my AAU basketball, the games and things of that nature. So I was always around positive role models. Back then with AAU and, school basketball, it was, the coaches really did care. And that's one of the advantages was that, the community centers, we had a lot of community centers that, I could pretty much run, you know, uh, 20 minutes to my next community center and be somewhere in a pickup game or having lunch or having dinner at the community center and going swimming, playing basketball, all of those things. And, I could stay out the house from sun up to sundown. And that was one of the great things about it. But in school, I had a lot of challenges because, again, I was so transit. A lot of my teachers didn't know what I was going through. A lot of times, like we were with my mother, we were staying in a homeless shelter at times. And so it was pretty difficult because I felt like, even for me, I started working my paper route when I was like 8 years old. I had moved into this neighborhood and this old man had a paper route and he had to have his legs amputated. So I remember him hiring a couple of kids in the neighborhood and I was one of them and I was 8. But I would have to be outside at like 11:45 every night, 12 o'clock, midnight or whatever, for him to come around, for him to pick us up. And then he would drop us back off at our houses or, right there in the little neighborhood. He would drop us back off at like 6 o'clock in the morning. So I was able to, throw papers all night, pretty much make enough money for me to be able to get like sandwich meat or some bread or whatever for me and my little sister. And then, we would have to go to school. And this was like sixth grade, um, fourth, fifth, sixth grade year. I remember this, and it was just, I felt like I was an adult. So I felt like I was in school at a very young age. Like I said, sixth grader, fourth, fifth, sixth grader. I'm like, I got to go to work. Like, I don't know what y'all talking about. Like, y'all out here playing on the swings and talking about who got into a fight with who yesterday. And I'm trying to get in the house to go take a nap, get my little sister fed, be ready to, be at work by 12 o'clock midnight. I get off about 6 o'clock in the morning. I got to get back home, get my little sister up, get her dressed, get her, Now we walking to school and I ain't seen my mother in a week. So, school was really tough because, again, even when we was with my mother, I knew that if we said anything about the way that we was living, like if we was living in an abandoned house or whatever, I didn't want children's services to come back and get us. So I would just, learn how to manage with just me and my little sister or whatever, or one of my brothers or whatever. And so it was a lot going on during that time for school. But again, it was both ends of the spectrum. Like I said, I went to school because I knew I was a good ball player, and that's pretty much what I did up until I got pregnant with my daughter. Taria, I played basketball.
Awesome, awesome. And wow, that's crazy. You're working third shift at fifth grade. That's the
Yeah.
first I heard that where you say don't tell the employment services nowadays. It's they'll be like, what? Wow, fifth, sixth grade, working third shift and going to school. What she's saying is no excuses. There's no excuses for adults nowadays. If you're here listening or viewing, there's no excuse for you. We work 6, 8 hours and be tired. She said I was fifth grade, working the graveyard shift. I ain't mad at you. Amen. And
Yeah.
so awesome, awesome. And so again, um, I'm glad you said that because, you know, you learned how to survive.
Yeah.
And there's something you said with the community centers that I don't think is I think they need to go back to the community centers. I know we have like YMCA and stuff like that, but again, I think there's a lot with the youth today where, we just play on the phone or play the video games and we're like, why are the kids act like this? Why are they lazy or why are they unmotivated? Like you said, how many, I know it's not ideal, but you can't, one who reads newspapers anymore. And then two, you can't, you can't just send your kids out and just, be gone the whole day anymore. Again, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, with
Yeah.
kidnappings and things of that nature. Again, like she said back in the day, she could, go play basketball for 8, 10 hours. I remember even, when I was a teenager, the summer times I spent, some of my summers in Chicago, I'd get up 8, 9, 10 o'clock, eat some breakfast, have my backpack and my basketball, have my gallon of water, walk to the park, and I'd be out till about 7 o'clock at night, come home, shower, eat dinner, and do it all again, and then nowadays, we don't have the motivation to do that or the resources because, again, we're just living in a different time. And
Yeah.
so I'm glad you say that. And so, can you walk through, the pregnancy with your daughter and then, how you navigated that, within the foster care system?
Yeah. So when I became pregnant with my daughter Taria, by the time I hit about 16, it was funny because I just viewed my childhood records here a while ago, and it was, I laughed when I seen it because I looked at how many times I went AWOL. And AWOL is pretty much when you just run away from your foster home and, you just out there in the streets or whatever, hanging out until your caseworker or the police finds you. So I look at how many times I went AWOL really between like the ages of like 13 to about 16. And so I got pregnant with my daughter when I was 17. And it was, I had started seeing an older gentleman. And, I got caught up in that whole theory of, want somebody to just save me, you know what I mean? Really just save me from being in a foster home for real. And he came along and I ended up getting pregnant with my daughter. I played basketball until I was about 6 months pregnant because I did not want to of course, I didn't want to be pregnant. You know what I mean? I knew that wasn't the ideal situation for me because I was already going through so much in the foster care system. But, once my coach found out that I was pregnant, they had taken me out of the school that I was in. Of course, I couldn't play basketball anymore. They removed me from the foster home that I was in. And so one of the situations was that there were no homes really in this community. There was only one foster home that was doing teenage moms and babies, but there was a wait. So they were talking to me about removing my child from me and putting her in a different home because there were no foster homes available for her and I to stay together. And so, but luckily, she had to go stay with her dad's family for about 4 months. But luckily, her and I were able to transition. I was able to have my daughter when I was in this foster home out in Trotwood, which is about 15 minutes from where I'm currently at in Dayton. And Miss Lucas was my foster mother, and she was the only one in the county that was doing teen moms and babies at the time. So, my daughter and I were able to stay there. I was able to still go to school at Trotwood High School. And again, I just wasn't a good student. I had probably I always felt like I was too grown to be around these kids. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I've been working, okay? So I pretty much, I just wasn't a good student because once the basketball went away, I didn't have any reason to be at the school. That's really my only reason for being there was to play basketball. So once that was stripped from me, it was just like, now I just, they're getting the quality of student that they probably would have had if there was no basketball before. So yeah, but I was able to parent my daughter and I thank God for that. I thank God for Miss Lucas. But I looked at things that was going on within that house, and I started to ask myself, It was a lot of things that I knew I needed as a young parent, that I just didn't have access to. Financial literacy. What do I do? Like, where do I go to make sure if I want to have credit, and if I'm looking at buying a house one day, or how do I go get a car? Or what is finance? It was a lot of conversations, that kids get growing up in households, and that I just didn't have access to. So, that's really what made me go back and want to start my program, the Mustard Seed Foundation, because it was like, well, if I start my program, I'm going to implement all these things that I wish that my daughter and I had when I was a young mom. And so that's how I birthed the Mustard Seed Foundation. I birthed it with everything that I would have wanted for myself, financial literacy, a high school program, a good active engagement with the school, things of that nature, parenting classes, and, cooking classes. So my girls at the Mustard Seed get everything. I don't want them to go out there and feel unprepared, you know. So that's really what I built that program on.
Awesome, awesome. I love everything you said thus far. And I love how you took your experiences and built a better foundation.
Mm,
Again, I encourage the audience that, what you go through, again, use it as a lesson. And what you lack, make sure nobody else lacks what you lack.
mm,
Um, always say, you should want to, again, back to the leave an inheritance for your children's children. That doesn't always have to be your biological children.
yeah.
You know, anybody in the community, we always see reach one, teach one. Your community, your legacy is how many people you impact before you leave Earth. And so you should want to, again, everything that you didn't get as a child or everything that wasn't afforded to you, you should be, want to be a resource for those that come after you, and to ensure that they don't go through those same and similar circumstances. And so everything you said in your testimony, I want the audience to understand one word, and that's just resiliency.
Mm,
You're resilient, from the start, from, being in fifth grade, working the graveyard shift on papers, to playing basketball up to 6 months pregnant, y'all. She played basketball. She played basketball up to 6 months pregnant. A lot of y'all break a fingernail and quit your job. And she played basketball up into 6 months pregnant. And so I want everybody that's listening, viewing this episode 15 with Shondale Atkinson to be encouraged. Show your parents grace. If you have anybody in your family that's wronged you because of addiction, show your people grace. And so, with that being said, what are some, you know, if you could tell somebody, if you met somebody that's listening right now that maybe they're in the foster care system, or maybe they have, family members in the foster care system, what is some advice that you would give them?
So one of the things I would say, if you're in the foster care system, is to please know that your current situation is not your destination. And I say that, and I know sometimes things that we say as adults appear to be cliches, but I can say that today because I'm a walking testimony, like a walking billboard of what it looks like to not allow my current situation to be my destination, and to understand that every day you wake up, you get a choice. You know what I mean? And I remember one day I was sitting there and I was watching my life unfold, and I'm looking at it almost like I'm sitting at the 50-yard line of a football field. And it's like, what team do I want to score for? What direction do I want to run in? And my goal is to always score for God. And that's it. Like, I understand that the devil be on your heels and he be trying to get you to switch out jerseys. But I promise to goodness God got a bigger and better plan for you. So I tell people to hold on. You know what I mean? Like, where you're currently at, you didn't get to make a choice in how you got there, but you definitely get to get a choice on how you bring, you know what I'm saying, bring yourself out of it. So I want you to make your choice God's choice. Align your will with God's will, and trust that wherever you at is for purpose. There wasn't one thing that I went through in the foster care system, in my parent home, that when I look at my clients that are coming into the Mustard Seed Foundation today, whether it be molestation, rape, drug addiction, homelessness, no matter what the situation is, human trafficking. God had to make sure that I lived it first. And, that's where empathy is built. That's where the sympathy in you is built. That's where your purpose lies. A lot of times it's hard to be a caseworker or a teacher for these kids because you didn't live through their situations. And our young people know that. They'll call you out on it. Like, you don't know what I'm going through. And it's like, yes, I do. No, you really don't, because the book couldn't have taught you that. And so that's one thing that there are people out here that do care about what you're going through, your struggle. I just want you to keep on holding on to be able to get to your village, because a real village is out here for you. And that's the one thing I had to do. And I want to encourage our young people to do, if you're in foster care, is I want you to take responsibility of what you want your village to look like, which means that if you want good friends, you learn to be a good friend. If you want somebody to help, be a leader in your life, then you decide to be a leader. You know what I mean? And so you align yourself, you will start magnetizing, like your body, your energy will start to be a magnet to what you say you want. So whatever energy you putting out, that's what you're putting back in. If you put out a victimized energy, like woe is me, then again, everybody's going to treat you like a victim. And there is no victory in being treated like a victim. So, I want you to take ownership of that. You can be an overcomer, and you don't have to wait till you 25, 30, 40, 45 to become one. If you're 15 and you're in foster care, decide today that you're an overcomer, and you start aligning with people who have shown themselves to be an overcomer. If you want uncles and aunts, go out in the community and find you some good solid aunts and uncles, and pour into them reciprocal energy, not that energy like I want to be a manipulator, or I want to be an opportunist, or I want people to give me money because I have a sad story to tell. You don't want that sad story to be leading with you, the integrity of who you are. You want to build your integrity on the word of God, and trusting that God is going to give you everything that you need. You don't have to really manipulate people out of it.
I love everything you said there. Again, trust God, and He'll lead the way. And so, with that being said, can you tell? I'm curious. I want to know. I'm sure there's viewers that want to know, what are some just some facts or some things about the foster care system that we may not know, and then also, what's your biggest success story with the Mustard Seed Foundation? And then you can close with telling them where they could find you.
Alrighty, so I will say some things about the foster care system again that you don't know is that there's a lot more abuse than people care to see. And again, sometimes we see these young people, they're dressed up, they look clean, you taking them. And I remember the situation, being dressed up real pretty and my hair looking cute or whatever, and we're going to church and we look like this typical Black Christian family. And oh my God, that is so nice of these people to take in these little orphan kids. And they're, what I mean, we're being raped, we're being beat, and again, nobody really seen the scars that was going on. So that's one of the things I would say about the foster care system. The second thing is that we need foster parents. We understand that we're in this conundrum of seeing a lot of our kids going to these mental health facilities and these lockup juvenile facilities at 8, 9, 10 years old. They don't belong in those type of facilities, because sometimes it's not your foster parents and it's not your staff that's raping the kids. It's other foster care kids in these facilities that's gone through sexual abuse, and now they've become the abuser, and they're 12 and they're having sex with 8-year-olds and so on and so forth. So the goal is that we need to increase the number of foster parents that we see. And again, there's a lot of people, even if you want to look at adoption, try to do foster parenting, and see if that helps, if that works for you in the interim while you're working on your adoption. But definitely, again, as a teacher, as an educator, I want you guys to pay more closer attention to your foster care youth. These are not bad kids. Quit calling them that in the classroom. If you start to see them transitioning in a way to a behavior that you're not used to, start asking them questions. You know what I mean? Even when we see kids go silent in classrooms, and that was probably like one of my kids that were really bubbly, I'm going to start asking questions and kind of poking around to see what's causing this shift in her behavior or his behavior. So just start doing your due diligence. And one of the things, that's what the Beyond the System is about. Beyond the System, a journey through foster care, was really about bringing a whole group of individuals together to show the impact in their life, but not just foster care kids in this film or people who were in foster care, but I have caseworkers that's worked in the system. I have a healthcare professional, therapists, teachers, foster parents. You know, we wanted to bring a broad perspective of what the foster care system overall look like from all perspectives. So that's one of the things that I really want people to check out this film. And if you are in foster care or you have children that were in foster care, please reach out to me. We would love to have you featured in our next film because this is just the first one. But God says that it's going to be a continual conversation. So, in obedience to what He's called me to do, I wish to continue this journey of just talking to people.
Awesome, awesome. And then what is your biggest success story from your Mustard Seed Foundation? And then tell the audience where they can find you.
So one of my greatest, and I have a lot of success stories with my girls. Honestly, I do. I've seen so many young girls come out of the Mustard Seed Foundation with their high school diploma. Like one of my young ladies, she came in and she was my second client. She had two kids. She was 15 when she came to us. She had her two kids, and she was literally like 0.7 GPA. They could not get this girl to go to school. And even when she first came to us, she would skip school all the time. And so we had to find a way to inspire her to believe in herself and see herself differently than when she came in the door. And this young lady graduated with a 3.8, walked across the stage with both of her kids and moved into her own apartment and went to college. And so glory to God, because I know what good foundation, good soil, I'll say, what good soil can produce. And I believe that that's what the Mustard Seed Foundation is. It's just good soil, for God to be able to get the glory and the harvest that He want to see in the young ladies. So we have a lot of different stories like that. Thank God.
Awesome. Amen. Amen.
Mm.
And again, y'all, it's been a wonderful episode 15 with Miss Shondale Atkinson out of the Dayton, Ohio. Again, show your family grace, show your people grace, um, care for the children, ask questions. Again, like she said, foster kids aren't bad children. They just need guidance. They just need to be shown grace and sympathy. Be empathetic. And, don't try to sugarcoat it. If you haven't been through what they've been through, let them know, hey, I don't know what you're going through, but let me know what you're going through. You know,
Mm.
be that open line of communication. And again, if you're a young teenager or in your early 20s listening, be that beacon of hope that you see. You know, be who you want, who you are called to be, and seek higher counsel. Again, like she mentioned, find that aunt, uncle in the community. Maybe it's the church, maybe it's the community, maybe it's a arts and craft club, maybe it's a library book club or something like that. Find like-minded people, find safe people that you can, mingle with and network with and, grow together within Christ. And so
Mm.
it's been a wonderful, again, episode 15. And can you tell the audience where they can reach you if they are interested in
Yeah,
inquiring?
they can actually go to my website. It is thewellnesslady.com. Or they can find me on Facebook, thewellnesslady.com, and on TikTok and Instagram, saying The Wellness Lady. So you can follow me there. If you go to my website, you will find information about Beyond the System, a journey through foster care, which will be coming out in March of 2025. So y'all, please stay tuned for that. That will be showing here locally. The premiere will be at the Neon Theater. So I am looking forward to seeing all of you guys there. If you have a program for foster care youth, please bring them out to see this film.
Awesome, awesome. And again, as I always say, I hope something, I hope you take one thing. I hope you took one thing that could resonate with you and to apply daily to your life, to again to create the dominion of your mind and reveal the truth light to shine. This has been Dominion and Shondale Atkinson from episode 15. Until next time on Darklaw Dominion Mental Health Series. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Create Dominion podcast with your host, Darklaw. Be sure to follow and like on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and go ahead and follow our Facebook and Instagram pages as well. We hope that you took something and resonated with it, that you can apply it to your daily life to become the best version of yourself and decree the dominion of your mind. Remember, decree and declare and take back your rightful throne and your rightful place into the best version of yourself. Thank you.